All right. So, yes, I'm Ryan. That's Dave. So, between the two of us, we've done a little over 40 million in tracked results for our clients. So, for people like Marissa Peer, she is one of the most prolific Mind Valley coach partners. Dr. Berg, you may have seen him around YouTube. He has around 13 million subscribers. Performance Golf, which is the largest online golf training academy known to humankind and probably alien kind too. I don't think they play golf anywhere else. So we got Robin Waite. We've worked with him. He's known as the UK's #1 business coach. He just released a
One
book.
of them. One of them.
I think he's
Yeah.
the best. I think he's #1. I don't care what anyone else says. Okay, and yeah, and Dion Training. So they're one of the largest IT tech kind of trainers in the world as well. So guys, yeah, I know that you've probably been on a lot of workshops. I've been on a lot of workshops. And how they usually go, we're going to spend the first 20 minutes reading our life story and stuff off of kind of slides like this. We're definitely not going to do that. We'll spare you on that, but we do want, well, yeah, I mean, especially, we're not going to get into something like Dave's like his horrible divorce story that he had someday, or my addiction to like Jolly Ranchers or anything like that. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff. But we want to just tell you how we've gotten to what we're going to show you today, like the bit of the story, like the reason why we're presenting this as we are right now. So yeah, Dave, take the next thing.
Yeah. So yeah, for the most part, and Ryan, will you just let people in, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like Ryan said, I kind of, well, he actually said it, but I started out as a copywriter back in 2016. And back in the agency that started me out, I was basically a glorified workforce. I was paid just high enough where it wasn't considered slave labor. So, it is what it is. But back then, it was good experience. And basically, I just worked on whatever I could get my hands on. So webinars, video sales letters, ads, emails. Shit, honestly, I feel like the agency would have handed me a ransom note to write if they were paid enough, to be honest with you. Like, it wouldn't have surprised me. And you know what? The stuff that I did, especially my early days, it worked really well. Like, especially in about 3 months into my time working with this agency back in 2016, I wrote a video sales letter in the women's space that did just a little over $20 million. Sorry, not 20 million, 2 million. And that was one of my product. Like, bear in mind, I've only like 3 months in working full time in this agency. I'd only just trained. I've been writing copy for 6 months, so that's a huge thing, And yeah, and so when I'm just seeing all these wins and them getting treated like a workhorse, I did what any reasonable person does, and I kind of just left. So I kind of did my own thing. I started an agency. I eventually niched down into the therapy world, did a whole bunch of stuff in that specific space. Then 2020 came around, wiped that out. So I found my way back to freelancing. And one of the first big jobs I picked up in was weight loss space, was weight loss in the women's space. Like almost the exact same space, just slightly different destination, but that's it. And so for the most part, I decided, I'm just going to try the exact same thing that I did back in 2016. And this was the whole thing this was sort of like what laid the foundations for what we're covering today. Because I followed the same process. It's not like I ripped it off verbatim, but I followed the same process I used for that ESL back in 2016. And the thing is, it bombed. Like, genuinely speaking, that VSL did horribly. Okay. And not like, oh, well, it was a bit too expensive horribly, like it hardly converted horribly. And this was kind of new to me because I wasn't expecting something like this. I mean, yeah, I'd kind of just found my way back into the freelance world, but I didn't think that something like this was going to happen, And I was seeing that happen quite consistently, I was seeing that ads I used to write that would do really well didn't do quite as well as I'd hoped, And I would then see the same thing with other VSLs and webinars, and I was like, what the hell's going on? So I figured that, and that's kind of what we're essentially talking about today. It wasn't just because ad costs were rising, it was because conversion rates were dropping as well. And that's essentially what we're talking about today. And Ryan saw the same thing, but in a different way, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
Ryan?
So I'm coming from the front end side of things. So from like the lead gen and the content side of things. And yeah, about 4 years ago, things were pretty easy. I mean, what I do is I had really simple kind of outreach. Now, I would basically ask people a question and give them some value. Like, hey, have you tried this kind of thing? No, you haven't. Well, hey, I'll help you. I'll show you how to do this thing. Let's jump on a call. So it was just a really, simple thing, but still, of course, value kind of forward. And content worked really well too. I've had some great posts, that just blew up and then brought me a bunch of clients. And it was like, great, this is sweet. This stuff works. But same kind of story, slowly these things have stopped working over the past few years. So the same kinds of questions, same kinds of outreaches, just less and less replies. And so naturally, what would I do? Like what most people do, I would try to give more. So just kind of longerish messages or more intricate kinds of outreaches and playbooks and like all these kinds of things to get people to build enough interest to want to get on to calls with me. So I'm kind of a sensitive guy. I thought it was me, and I was like, oh man, like maybe I'm just not good anymore. Maybe I need to study more. Maybe my outreaches suck. Like what is it? What's going on? But I started. It's kind of just recently that we've really realized what's going on, and it's something that Dave has just kind of described. These things not working more and more, but I just didn't really have a name for it yet. So now to like the story of me and Dave. So we first met around 2020 and became friends. And then we were giving clients back and forth. I'd help him with some of his stuff. He'd be helping me with some projects on my end. And kind of the more and more that we talked about what's going on, what's working and what's not, we kind of realized that we were circling around this same kind of problem, just coming from different ends. Me on the lead gen, him on the back end side of things. So beginning of 2025, we said, hey, let's build an agency together. Let's show people what we've figured out and really solve this problem for everyone who's doing marketing and sales these days. So that's what we're here to show you. We're here to show you what is on the other side of this problem, of why things that have worked a few years ago aren't working now, and what we've been doing about it and what our clients have been doing about it and having lots of success with.
Yeah. So the first thing we're going to cover is ultimately why the premium clients have gotten harder to reach. More specifically, we're going to cover the shift that's actually causing it, something that took me a lot longer than admittedly it should have taken for me to figure out. From there, we're going to go through the one positioning shift that makes you magnetic to dream clients, and more specifically, something that makes you, I'll say, so you don't have to worry about, does the next is this working with the algorithm? Does this work with the current way the ads thing? Is this the best thing for the funnel? All that sort of stuff. You don't have to worry about that because the positioning shift makes all that stuff irrelevant, basically. Then we're going to go on to how you guys can position yourselves as the only logical choice, not just the best choice, which is quite important and a lot of what we cover today. And we will also go and talk about how we will help you install that, and for a fraction of probably what most other people would charge. So yes, there will be an offer at the end. You don't have to stay there, but if you are interested in the live show bonus that we mentioned, the 3-phase scaling blueprint, we'll give that towards the end as well. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I want to show you guys something cool. So I think a lot of you who registered will probably remember this, the one question right at the beginning of the registration. We asked you, what is the one thing that you wanted to take away from this session? And we didn't just do that just for gathering data on, we kind of did, but we also did it because we already knew what the two biggest answers were going to be. And it's not because we've run this webinar before. We haven't. We just see what's working in the market right now. We see what the biggest pain points are. And so we pretty much predicted this. So the two biggest pain points that stood out, one was, how do I attract a steady stream of clients without having to hire another agency? And the other was, how can I attract great clients, repel tire kickers without having to change my offer or add some insane guarantee? Like, those were the two biggest things. And yeah, that's pretty much what we expected. Now, for the most part, we're going to be covering that. In fact, I will give a shift for every single one of these options towards the end. So if you guys want a very clear answer to how you can do those things, stick around till the end, because that's what we will get to once we've gone through most of the stuff we're going to talk about today. So that brings us on to what comes next. So for the most part, Ryan, you can kind of address what's.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if you think about, the answer that you did choose, there's an underlying kind of thing that we all want that is under that choice. And it's the sophisticated, high paying client. We want the client that when you talk to them, they don't haggle you on price, and they have lots of great friends that they say, hey, if this works out, I'm going to refer you to all my friends. And they actually do the work. They show up and do the work. All of you clients that are in here right now, I love you guys because you actually do show up and do the work. You know who you are. So thanks for that. But, so those are the people that we actually want to be working with. And so the thing is, though, those clients, they're those kinds of, or at least kinds of people, we want to just remember that they haven't gone anywhere. This whole thing that's happened in the past few years or whatever, where stuff isn't working now that it was, they haven't actually gone anywhere. What's happened is they've opted out of marketing. There's something that's happened in marketing that I'm sure you can think about it right now. That's happened that's really taken them away from paying attention to ads, paying attention to all the funnels, paying attention to content. And that's what we're sharing here. We're going to share that, what is that thing, and why we're not able to attract those clients consistently anymore with what we're doing if we keep doing things the same way as we've been doing them.
Right. And before we go any further, I want to ask a question to everyone here. So some already know the answer here, and some of you haven't. For those of you who did the exercise we sent out in the email, basically where we had you brainstorm what might the price be, and what might go into your offer that's essentially meant for a whale client. Okay, so simple answer is take what you do now. I say 2 to 3x, but really most of you should probably 3x, probably even a bit more. So if you've got a 5K offer, it's a 15K offer. If you've got a 10K offer, it's probably a 30K offer, whatever that is. If that is all you sold, and I'm curious, how many of those would you have to sell in a given year to hit your income targets? For Ryan and I specifically, with our offer, we'd only realistically need about 1 client every quarter. So I'm curious, how many clients, well, so that's 4 a year. So I'm curious, how many would you guys need in a given year?
Type that in the chat, guys. Don't be shy. Don't have to think too much about it. How many whale clients do you think you'd need in a year? As a target.
15. My offer needs to be high. Yeah, I agree. As a rule of thumb, if you need any more than 1 a month, you probably definitely need to increase your prices. In fact, that's probably the biggest sign that you need to increase your prices.
Yeah, we've got lots of in the 10 ranges, 10, 20, 10, 15. Got a couple, Ben with 2, Simon 5. Yeah, so yeah. Sorry, Dave, I don't want to keep rolling here.
Fair enough.
Get carried away sometimes.
That's ultimately what we want to focus on. We want to focus on attracting the people that would naturally buy it. And we'll even show you exactly what it looks like to get them to that point. But I won't hop on too much, so let's just go straight in.
Yeah, okay. So everything that we've talked about here so far, been hinting at it, alluding to it. So 51% of you typed the same answer, and we told you that's not a coincidence that that's the answer most people are bringing up. So now Dave told you about that campaign that he ran that used to print money, and then basically it stopped. Conversions dropped, and there's the same kind of root that is underneath all of those things, the same root kind of problem that's happened. And it is that these dream kind of clients, these whale clients, the sophisticated, high paying ones, again, they haven't gotten harder to sell, which the idea that they're harder they're harder to sell to. That's just this kind of comforting kind of vision that the marketing industry likes to sell to you, likes to sell to all of us. And it's like, why? Because that just means that if they've gotten harder, then the fix, it's easy. You just need to push harder,
Yeah.
do more
You need a
content,
bigger, you need to buy a longer funnel. You need a better
spend
sales
more.
script, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, follow up more, just do more, just do more. And you know what? I can help you do more. I can, just give me more money. Let's spend more money on ads. Let's run another campaign. Let's do all this stuff. It's just do more. But that's besides the whole point, because the real problem is it's not harder to sell to reach these kinds of people. It's just that they've left the game entirely. Again, they've opted out, literally ignoring marketing. Like literally ignoring marketing, and you don't have to take my word for it because Dave's going to show you the actual numbers here.
Yeah. So deep research from ICF, Nielsen, Influitive, and Forrester confirmed two things that happen at the same time. And when you look at them together, it kind of paints a very clear picture. So the first is that the market didn't just get crowded, it basically exploded. In less than 5 years, the number of coaches in the more than doubled. Okay. It went from 71,000 to a little over 167,000. And right now, as I speak, there are more than 4.7 million profiles on LinkedIn with the word coach in it. That's more people than the amount of people who live in Los Angeles, just for context. Okay. It's not a small amount. And here's one that's actually really, really that, like, when I first read it, I was like, oh my God. Like, you probably guys, like, it might sound hyperbolic, but like, you'll see what I mean. Because as a lot of you guys know, the general rule for years was write your book, write your book, write your book. That's like the ultimate gold standard to cement yourself as an authority. Okay. Well, guess what? Everyone's been saying that for so long that the market just started listening. Okay. And bear in mind, I don't think these numbers have been updated for AI, but when you actually do the math, there are about 4.7 million books that are self-published, just self-published, mind you, on Amazon every single year. That averages out to 3,800 per day. And what are the most common niches? Well, it's all the things that you guys would expect. It's the business niche, sales niche, self-help, mindset, all that sort of stuff. Okay, those are the most common. Those are the most common ones that are getting published. So 3,800 books a day, just to keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the first thing. The market is completely flooded. And the second thing is how the buyers kind of responded. And it's probably a lot of how some of you would expect. So they basically essentially just stopped trusting. Only about 39% of people right now trust advertising at all. That might sound kind of obvious to a lot of you who are already naturally skeptical, but it's gone down about 20 points over the last 30 years, which is quite significant if you understand how that represents across the board. Okay. Most trust companies less now than they did a year ago, and that's the trend that seems to keep on happening. And but at the end of the day, just because the market's lost its faith in advertising and marketing, etc., that doesn't mean that people are going to stop looking to try and solve their problem. So where does it go? Well, basically, it goes internal. Okay, 92% of people who have a high net worth, so we'll use that as just the simplest frame for what a highly sophisticated well client might be. They act on a referral over any other method. Okay, 92% of who they work with comes purely from referral. Again, this is the most recent data. It may actually even be worse right now, but that's the data as the last time I saw this. And ultimately, one thing that you also need to consider is that ultimately 84% of buyers start their buying process with a referral. So they actually start it with. So that means that by the time you might actually be in the running, when they're actually starting to look for a solution, chances are they've already spoken to at least one or two other people who've already come recommended from people in their network. Granted, it may not always be someone who's come recommended. It might be, hey, I want marketing. Can you help me? Oh, my kid's doing social media marketing, something like that. So keep that in mind, but that doesn't mean that people don't buy that, you know? So for the most part, when you kind of put these two pictures together, it kind of paints a very, very interesting picture about like what this actually means. Now, this is a lot to take in, so I'll let Ryan kind of just simplify this.
Yeah, and two, can I see? I'm just like curious. Can I see a quick like show of hands, like that stuff on the left? You know, especially like the books, because we got a lot of I know amazing people. Like we all like want to write a book. My mom says I should always write a book someday. But did you guys, know that stat of like 3,800 people putting out a book every day? And it's like an amazing thing, right, to do that. But it's just that again, there's so many. I just see so many coaches that are like, hey, I'm gonna, get my create a book course and pay me $3,000, $5,000. We'll put it on Amazon. And again, I think that's wonderful. It's an amazing feat to write a book, but it's just going to show again, it's like that's not going to be something that's really going to help you stand out in the long run. And then the stat with the 84% thing of people, like that's where referrals start. I mean, maybe you're thinking that about yourself. It's like, yeah, kind of, I do kind of start with just people I know, right? So how are we supposed to reach out to cold traffic people? Okay. So, okay, this will be fun. So, Dave just gave all the statistics here, the number side. So I'm a very visual kind of person. So I want to give an analogy, a restaurant kind of analogy. So everyone with me here. So just imagine you're on a street. Okay, you're on a street and there's 10 restaurants on this street. You're in your nice, I don't know if you've ever lived in kind of like a smallish town, but like maybe you're on Main Street. It's a nice, it's dinner time, you're with your family, whatever. You're walking down the street, you got 10 restaurants on it. And, typically people, you're scrolling down the street, you're going to read a menu. Here in Rio, there's lots of like menus that are outside on the sides of the restaurant. You go and you read it, and then you pick the one that you like. And that's simple. And for years, that's how marketing was. You got the street, you got restaurants, you pick what you like, and then you go do it. Now, these days, the barrier for opening a restaurant, it basically disappeared. So now, and I'm talking about the restaurant means business, okay? So now anyone with a laptop can open a restaurant. Now 10 signs became 200 different signs. And not only 200 different signs on the same main street, but just glowing neon, hey, look at me, I've got this restaurant kinds of signs. And as you've may have tasted with lots of businesses, most people are serving up the same heat up this frozen lasagna kind of signature dish. So think about what did the best restaurant goers do? The people who like restaurants, the most, those ones that they love to go to nice places. They don't mind paying for good food. They don't mind paying for good service. They like to go back to the places that they like more and more. What do? They look at this street with 200 glowing neon signs and it's like, nope. I'm not gonna go down that street. It doesn't matter about the 10 restaurants that are there. They're gonna look at that. They're not gonna go down that anymore. So that's why they're not clicking on ads. They're not entering in your funnel. They're not booking any of those calls because they've just opted out of this main street that everyone's doing the same kinds of tactics again and again and again. So the question though, the why we're here, what people aren't asking, it's not how do I make a louder neon sign, right? It's where are those people going? Where are those good restaurateurs going? And how do we get on their list before they get hungry and before they decide to go something else? That's what we're talking about here.
Right. And what's happening, we've actually kind of coined it as a term. We've called it market burnout. Okay. Now, the easiest way to understand it, if you guys just want the simplified answer for this, is that ultimately you just have to look at it from their perspective. So let's say we take let's take some time back and go back to, let's say, 2012. And let's say this is when, let's say, a high-paying, sophisticated whale client started looking to solve that problem. Okay. In 2012, they had most likely started with a course. It makes sense at the time. Maybe they don't have as much money as they likely do right now. And I think most people who end up hiring people to a certain degree, especially if you're like in B2B, most people start out trying to solve the problem with a course. Of course, courses can only get you so far. So let's say after a bit of trial and error, 2016 comes, they join a mastermind. Okay. After some years in that mastermind and just looking at what's the actual state of most masterminds, they realize it's basically a glorified Facebook group with one Zoom call once a month with people sharing sort of like half-assed ideas of what's working for them. They fast forward and they decide, okay, I'm going to hire an expert one-on-one. Okay. Expert a lot of the times just turned out to be someone who is maybe 3 months ahead of them. Then we get to now. And the now part is kind of just what really does it all in. Because every single day, every single time they pick up their phone And it's just claim left, right, up, down, center, everywhere. Someone promising to double your revenue, someone promising to do that in half the time, someone is offering to do that but for like $50. Someone who's got such a big guarantee they may as well just give away one of their kidneys and their wife's hand in marriage. For the most part, it's just noise. So that's all they can hear. That's all they see. And it gets worse and worse and worse every single day because more marketers enter ads, more people start creating content, more people start posting their books. It all just compounds into noise. Okay. So the only thing you can do when you get to that point is you just opt out because it's like, shit, I can't trust anything in this market. And if you think about it from their perspective, it's like why wouldn't you come to that? Especially if you've been burned before, which most whale clients actually have been burned before. Not all, but most. This is something that we've seen across the board. So if you've been burned at least one time before, and then you start seeing like these claims, and these claims get crazier and crazier and crazier. In fact, there's a funny claim I saw literally like a few hours before this webinar, and I'll read it out to you guys a little bit later on. But like, all you can do is just like, I don't believe it. If you see something that's cheap, you're like, what's wrong with it? If you see something that's a claim that's just even above the board, you don't believe it. You get the idea. Okay. So for the most part, that's essentially what market burnout is. Now, some of you, I know you kind of just want to get to the point, and don't worry, we'll get to like how you solve this. But I think some of you are still like, I get that, Dave, but how much does market burnout really apply to me? I feel like maybe this doesn't apply to my market. Okay. I want to do an exercise with everyone, if that sounds good. Okay. So picture this. Imagine you've just had the worst quarter of your business that you've had in a long time, maybe ever. Okay? Your cash is tight, your pipeline's dry, you start sweating, basically. And then out of nowhere, a dream client lands on a call with you. And they're a well client. They're ready to go. There's good banter back and forth. There's a connection. They seem to really be interested in you. And then they eventually say it. It's like, okay. So I'll just say this is a conversation with Ryan. So Ryan, I like what you do, and I think I want to work with you. I've just got one question to ask you, and if you can answer this in a way that satisfies me, I'll wire you the money right now. So here's the question. Over the last few weeks, I've been speaking to a number of your competitors, and 4 have stood out. One does what you do, but they do it in half the time. Another does what you do, but they do it for half the price. The third does what you do, but they have about 10 times more social proof and a much longer track record than you do. And one offers a lot more support and actually, funny enough, the best guarantee I've seen in the industry. So if you can answer in a way that satisfies me why I should work with you as opposed to any of them, I'll send you the money right now. And if most people are honest with themselves, I'm sure there's maybe a handful of people on this call who know how to who can answer this. A lot of our clients certainly. But for the most part, most people wouldn't be able to answer that because if you think about it, how could you possibly answer that? It always comes down to, but I can offer this. Well, someone can do it better. I can do it in half. I can do it something in 60 days. Someone can do it in 45. You get the idea. There's always going to be someone who, like, if this is the market's general go-to response to differentiation, I'll be the cheapest option. I'll be the fastest option. I'll be the option that gives the best guarantee, etc. Right up until someone comes along and just offers something for slightly cheaper, offers something for slightly less, offers to do something slightly faster, etc. You're essentially renting market space by doing that. Okay. And the easiest way to do it is to like look at the kind of claims that people were making in pretty much any industry just 5 years ago compared to what you see now. Hell, go back 10 years ago and you'll see exactly what I mean. For the most part, the market's general go-to response to solving this has been either carve a niche of my own and become a content creator. Well, I can't really speak to the Instagram side of things and like the YouTube side of things. I know it's kind of crazy, but the Amazon side of things, around 3,800 books self-published, again, just self-published every single day, kind of tells you it's getting harder and harder to stand out in content. And the other response is traditional direct response. I'll get a sharper claim. I'll be the cheapest option. I'll be the fastest option, etc. It works right up until someone decides that they're going to do something a little bit cheaper, a little bit faster, etc. I think you guys get the idea. So, for the most part, if you could genuinely answer why they should pick you, fair. But the vast majority of people can't answer that, as you would expect. Okay? So, that brings up the next question. How do you solve this? So we've been teasing you guys for a little bit, so we won't do that anymore. How does the solution actually happen? I'll pass that on to Ryan.
Yeah, so everything that that we're talking about in that crystallization exercise, every answer that you potentially came up with, there's kind of these big four categories. Maybe you're cheaper, or maybe you're faster, or maybe you're better, more testimonials. Oh, I've worked with Fortune 500 companies. I worked with Fortune 100. I've worked with Fortune 50. Oh, well, I can do things faster, or whatever that kind of is. That's all trying to win this comparison kind of game. So if you want to, and it's all about trying to being the best person that's in this lineup, the best restaurant that's in this 200, this street of 200 different types of people, street of 200 different restaurants. Yeah. So yeah, we're not trying to win comparison game. We're trying to make that really, it's about being that just being irrelevant. And what we want to do is somebody is going to look at you, they get onto a call with you, and it's, well, you're just the only logical choice to work with. There's really just no one else that's out there that is doing what you're doing. So what that is, what we call that kind of person having that kind of positioning is a market messiah. Okay, now I know this is some kind of grand thing. Now we're not talking about like we're saving the world here. This isn't some kind of religious thing. This is just a market messiah. It's someone who is simply, they're the one business in the market, in this market where everyone's been burned, everyone's skeptical, they've seen it all. It's the only one that they actually trust before they get onto a call with you. Okay, most people, we're trying, because I know all of you are really great at, you get somebody in front of you on a call and you can sell them, right? But what great positioning needs to do in this market, this super crowded market, is we need to have positioning and messaging that does all that trust building work on the front end, so that by the time that they're talking to you, so that one, they actually talk to you in the first place, but then two, by the time they get onto the call with you, they already trust you and they understand that you're doing something different that no one else is. So that's the question for the rest of the time here, is this solution, this how do you become the market messiah for your people?
Becoming the market messiah, as we've kind of come to coin it, comes down to one shift. This is the one shift that we've been teasing for a while. In fact, we've been teasing it for a few weeks, really. And essentially, it's all about one thing. You go from the car salesman to the doctor, okay? Now, that's essentially the whole move, okay? Most marketing, most approaches to marketing, whether it's intended or not, turns you into the salesman, pitching, pushing, here's my thing, here's why it's great. You can get a discount if you act today. And even most delayed response, or we can say branding approaches, you still kind of come off as sort of like the car salesman, even if you don't intend to, And this is just the stuff that most people have opted out of. Market Messiah does the opposite. Market Messiah is the doctor. Doctor doesn't pitch, a doctor diagnoses. They tell you what's actually wrong, often the thing that you couldn't put your finger on, the thing that you couldn't explain. They put it in a way where you not only understand it, but it's memorable. You get almost unforgettable, okay? They don't try and force you into like some kind of like 10K, 15K, 20K, whatever it is, like insane program when you're only like halfly sold. They let you choose, like for instance, like the doctor, and I can speak to this as someone who's like, for context, a while ago I had thyroid cancer, and I was given two options. First option, it wasn't the case that I was on the fence. Should I not solve my thyroid cancer? No, I wanted to solve my thyroid cancer. So I was given two options. They were, well, do you want to have your thyroid surgery, or do you want to basically douse yourself in radioactive iodine to kill it? I chose the latter option for context. That's essentially what the doctor does. Okay. Now this is a bit woo up in the sky, so we'll cement this a bit more for you guys. Okay. And I think a big question, and this is kind of like something that I'm curious about. If you could choose one type of ideal client who we would call your quote unquote whale client, who would that be for you? Okay. It can be someone specific like outpatient doctor. It could be let's say senior civil engineers, or it could be certain types of coaches, or it could just be women, certain age range with certain types of health issues. Who would that be for you guys?
Yep. Type in the chat, guys. Type in the chat. Who's that kind of dream client, that kind of person that you are going after? Don't admit they have an issue.
Medium-sized business owner. Okay.
Tech leaders feel something's off, can't put their finger on it. Company founder wants to be leading edge. Okay, yeah. So founders, midlife empathic woman, unrealized dream, CEO founder, doesn't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of like I thought too, Dave. Yeah, lots of people going after kind of the leaders, more ambitious, entrepreneurial types of people. For sure.
As expected.
As expected.
So Ryan, how does one become a market messiah? What are the 5 moves they have to make?
Okay, yes. So we got 5 moves to becoming a market messiah. So, and it's doing what the doctor does in a businessy kind of way,
Marketing
I'd say,
lens.
in a marketing kind of lens. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I mean, and then yeah, and going over this, you're definitely gonna understand what that means. And it's just funny how when we do marketing, when we put out messaging, when we create content, when we think about our sales processes, we don't most, don't do this, but it makes a lot of sense. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we need to diagnose. So most marketing, like you see, somebody that hooks you into something, it's a big promise. Okay, you're gonna get 30 clients in a month. You're gonna get things done, twice as fast, and it's this offer that's a hook. It's a hook. So, what we're doing instead is we're gonna talk about the real underlying symptom, the kind of real root cause issue that's happening for us. When I've reached out to all of you, it's all been about positioning. It's all been about messaging. I'm not saying, hey, I'm gonna get you a bunch of clients. I never lead with that. I say, hey, there's something deeper going on here. It's something with your positioning, your messaging. I've made you guys all playbooks about this even too. That's what we're leading with. We're leading with a diagnosis of seeing what's wrong. And I'm helping you put into words maybe what you've been thinking about, but in a way where it's like, okay, I think Ryan gets it. Like this seems to be making sense. So the second thing that we're doing is reframing. Okay, so we're going to shift how they see the whole problem. I'm saying, hey, it's not a more content problem. It's not an ads problem. It's not just a lead gen problem. It's a positioning problem. So we're shifting, we're reframing, showing that it's not what you thought. It's not that you need to hire another agency. It's not that you need to get better at copywriting. It's not that AI sucks. It's not that the algorithm sucks. There's something else underneath it. So we're reframing what that is. And this is where the competition kind of disappears because, yeah, maybe when most other marketers are out there talking about this other stuff, there are probably very few people that are actually saying, hey, did you consider your positioning first? Sounds like Ryan is saying something a little bit different here.
Most people, like in our space, lead with ads, content, etc. Very few people lead with positioning and messaging. That's kind of the point. It's not sexy because most people don't know how to sell that.
Exactly. So that's what you got to be thinking about too, from even a tactical standpoint. If you're going to go reach out to someone who knows nothing about you, it's not trying to have a better offer. Think like, what is that real root cause reason why they're having the problems that they're having? So think about that when you do your outreaches next. So the third thing here, we're thinking about painting the vision. So not imagine making 7 figures on the beach, even though that's kind of what I'm selling here. Yeah, except I'd have a caipirinha in my hand as well when I'm saying that. But really, we're going to show what a real solution looks like. So, and when we're showing what that solution, looks like, we've identified what that real root cause reason is. Now we're identifying this is the path, this is the vision, this is what it looks like, this is what should be happening when you're a market messiah. Okay. Now we're setting the criteria of what's supposed to happen. So now we actually have to show the path. Okay, that's the fourth thing. We show the path, we show the route. What are we going to do first? What does that actual literal path looks like? What are we doing that is filling in the gaps of what all those other solutions out there aren't doing, that aren't actually solving the root cause? And then fifth, we're going to invite them in. Now, this isn't a kind of like, if you don't do this, you're going to fail kind of thing, because obviously, whoever you're talking to, they want to fix the problem.
That's how most people tend to sell. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like my way or the highway. If you don't do this, you're going to fail. You got to do it my way. It's, hey, doesn't it just it just makes sense, right? That what I'm showing you, it just makes sense that this is the way. That if you don't fix your positioning or if you don't fix your positioning before you do all that other tactical stuff you're doing isn't going to matter. None of that stuff is going to work. So that's what you got to think about. So this is about, again, being the most logical choice, and then showing that path, how that path is going to get them from where they're at to this result that we're actually promising.
And
Again,
it's more specific, and more specifically, just add on the point there, it's about inviting them to take the obvious next step, because it is the obvious next step. Okay, most people, when you think about like how they make buying decisions, it's a tough decision, because we're taught to do like one or sometimes even two core closes in the best of cases, but that's still making a long-term buying decision off of very little context. And does this make sense? You know, so for the most part, it's less of a here's my thing, and here's why you should buy it. It's like, okay, well, do you want this package or this package? Just like the doctor said, well, do you want to cut it out or do you want to nuke it out? Yeah, same thing essentially, or at least the same principle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's essentially what you guys need to be doing across your entire sales process, from all the way at the top of the funnel right down to when they say yes. Okay, is diagnose, reframe, paint the vision, clear the path, and invite. Okay, now that part matters, but it's pie in the sky until you actually see what it looks like in your marketing and sales process. Okay, so what does this actually look like in things like ads, sales presentations, content and emails, and sales and upsells? Well, we'll show you. So, and I'll show you an example of an ad in a second that brought in 37 new clients for my one client in just 2 weeks, just to showcase this. But this essentially starts at the top of the funnel. And this doesn't just have to be ads, by the way. There are a small percentage of people that can do well with viral content. But either way, we're talking about what builds your audience at the top of the funnel. Okay. So it's the same principle. And I think most people on here would do better with ads than they would with content. But you never know until you see it. Who knows? I might be talking. As I talk, there may be someone on here who's got like several 100,000 followers and we don't even know about it. You know? But this is essentially where the conversation in the mind starts with these ideal clients. So this is essentially your first impression. Okay, and most people tend to repel these sophisticated clients in the first 3 seconds, because again, the standard approach is claim, book a call, here's my thing, here's my offer, etc. Okay, and we've already discussed why this tends to put off a burn buyer. Okay, so you want to go less from pitching and think of it from this perspective. If you walked in to a doctor's office and before you even sit down, they just start listing off a whole bunch of symptoms that you have, including some that you didn't even want to, some that you were going to keep to yourself. Like, are you tired even after you have like a full night's sleep? Are you losing your hair? Do you feel cold even when no one else does? On and on and on. And you're just like, yes, yes, yes. Like in that moment, not only do you they have your full attention, but also that you're not thinking in that moment, maybe I should get a second opinion, you know, maybe I should shop around. You're thinking, I need to listen to this person, you know. Your ads need to do the same thing, okay? But the caveat is you need to speak to the right people. Most people don't know how to speak to those people, but you need to lead with the symptoms and patterns of the right people, the sophisticated buyers, okay? Now, I'll show you an example of what an ad like this might look like. So like I said, this is one that I wrote for a client of mine. It's a little while ago, but the principle remains the same. This is when I really started to lean into this side of things and when I really started to realize the difference this kind of positioning actually makes, okay? So for the most part, what you guys see before you is an ad that brought my one client 37 of our own clients in just 2 weeks. Not leads, but actual clients, okay? And the funnel was actually really simple. It was this ad copy with a little bit more that goes beyond, but you know, I only had so much space. A very ugly image, a very ugly landing page, book a call, and a few follow-up emails. And that was it, okay? Bear in mind, she's selling what effectively amounts to a 3K health package, you know? So we're not talking a small amount here. We're not talking like $50 an hour or something like that. We're talking an expensive package. Okay. And just look and see how this leads. Okay. We're not saying, hey, get this result. We're not leading with a claim. We're basically stacking all of the symptoms and patterns that her exact ideal client would struggle with. By the time she gets to the endpoint, which is that this doesn't have to be you, and she starts the diagnosis, like you can see all the way at the end of that ad. By the time you get to that point, if even half of this stuff is true, if even 20% of this stuff is true, it doesn't matter because I feel called out. I feel like this person, her name was Sonia, gets me. I don't need I don't need to look away. I feel like I already trust this person. Okay, especially if, like in this case, we're talking about someone who's already tried multiple solutions. So for the most part, this is a good example of making sure you're not only leading in the right way, but you're speaking to the right person. Okay. Now, this is a good example of how this looks like in ads. Now, what does it look like in sales presentations? Because this is the next thing. So with sales presentations, this is webinars, video sales letters, whatever it is, maybe challenge funnels. Everyone's different, I find. This is where most people tend to lose the whales, even if they can do a decent job, let's say at the top of the funnel. Okay. Because the whole thing turns into like a 90-minute pitch with like a countdown timer at the end. Okay. They follow the typical hero's journey. They follow the typical approach. And for the most part, the typical sophisticated client can see the pitch coming a mile away. Yeah. A market messiah presentation does something different. And while elements of a sales presentation are still there, it still runs on the same engine we've already mentioned. It diagnoses the real problem. It reframes it. It paints the vision of what the solution actually looks like, and it shows the path. And then it invites them to take the next step. And then ultimately, by the time there's any kind of offer, regardless of what the offer is, and we'll give you guys an insight into what offer we recommend you guys use for something like this. But for the most part, they're already convinced. It's like Ryan said earlier, you don't want to get on a call with someone who's only like halfway through. They're already convinced into your worldview, how you see things, and your overall positioning. So by the time they get to that point, they already know they have to work with you. It's just going to be a case of, does this offer that they're going to make right now the most sense? And that's what your sales presentation needs to do. And so up next, we talk about content. Oh, actually, I forgot to mention this. So this was a client of ours, Michaela. She ran this webinar not too long ago. This was last week. No, 2 weeks ago. Sorry. So this was 2 weeks ago. And she ended up converting about 20% of live attendees. Now, she's just the latest amongst many of the clients who've had similar results. But for the most part, just to give you guys context, the industry standard is about 3 to 5%. And she converted about 20%. We've actually had clients that have converted nearly around 3%. Because ultimately, this is what category of one positioning does. It makes it clear, I have to work with you. The only thing that remains is, well, what comes next and the offer. But before the offer, there's content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a big thing to realize about this too is, we're not speaking to everyone. The way to really cut through the noise and have consistency and predictability in your sales when it comes to your marketing stuff. It's not to speak to everyone. It's to, it's to be targeted. And then even on that, can you pull up the post here, Dave? The headline?
Sorry.
Yeah. So like the headline, so we don't, when we're attracting the sophisticated buyer, that way we dog whistle the sophisticated buyer. So it's to go beyond symptoms and patterns. So we're not just saying, hey, do you want to be a better leader? Hey, do you want to help your team be more productive? It's, hey, if you've been trying this thing and your team still isn't productive, here's why. Hey, if you've been trying to do this, if you've worked on your mindset and you still can't get people paying attention to you, here's why. So it's this level of, if you've been trying these kinds of things, here's why it's not working. And I'm going to help you understand why and what does. So we're going to this next level. This is called speaking to the solution aware type of prospect. So that's what we're kind of doing here in, that's what we want to think about in content. There's a reason why 90% of your competition sounds exactly the same. So we're not even acknowledging necessarily what the problems our prospects are having. We're acknowledging the things that they've been trying that haven't been working. That's how we talk to the person that's tried everything that hasn't worked. And now they're looking at you when they get in front of you on a call and they're thinking, okay, how are you going to be any different and better than those other things? Because if you can answer that question, then you've got the client. Now you have the right person in front of you and you've got them because they understand how you're different and better. So again, we're not trying to persuade anyone that we're the best. We're helping them understand that you understand that you know what's going on better than anyone else does and even better than they do. So yeah, so that's what we got to think about on content. Now, when it comes to sales and upsells, this is another huge one that people miss. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard me talk about this already. If we've been on calls, clients, coffee chats, whatever, it's what most people try to do. So there's kind of these two weak points, and there's the front end on the back end. And what most people try to do on this back end is make them go from 0 to 100. So even going from 0 to a 1,000 to like $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 package is a lot. It's a big jump. And when you try to make that big ticket, long-term commitment, then that's when a lot of people start going to hard closing tactics. You try to, use all those sales techniques that Alex Hormozy tells you, or any of those other kind of salespeople tell you things aren't going to last, scarcity, lots of pressure. But for the sophisticated buyer, that's the stuff that they have been designed to ignore. Their sales walls go up and it doesn't work. So we don't want to do that. A market messiah doesn't do that. We want to lead with what is the simplest, easiest, genuinely helpful kind of thing that we can do as far as for when the upsell is concerned. What's the smallest step that's going to solve their most pressing problem right now? So think about that. When your offer, are you solving, what's the next small step? The one thing that they're really thinking about that would just easily help them say yes. Yeah. So, okay. So that's kind of what, selling looks like too for someone who already, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So what we're asking on the back end, it's not like, what is this big package going to be next? How can we get someone to spend the most money with us and buy? But it's really, we're asking them based on where you're at. Okay, person, you've already bought from me. Now getting to the next step to the upsell. Based on where you're at, which of these things is going to make the most sense for you? Not, hey, here's my big package, here it is, take it or leave it. It's which of these options that I have for you, which one of these is going to make the most sense for you? That's what we present on the upsell. That's how we sell like a doctor, like the market messiah. We give options because it's not about trying to sell anyone. It's about helping them. It's about giving them the thing that's going to help them the most. So that's what selling looks like too for someone who already trusts you. Okay, we don't need to convince anyone. So now, so this is we literally, our client Michaela, she sent this 3 days ago, and here you can see at the top, she closed $15,000 package here up at the top, and she just had this webinar too, like 3 days ago. She made like 8 sales on her webinar, and
2 weeks ago, and she closed 3 days ago, right?
Yeah, sorry, we have a lot of amazing clients doing a lot of amazing things. I get mixed up sometimes, but so anyway, that's what it looks like. When people are trusting you, that's what sales and upsells look like. So that's kind of the engine here, guys. That's the engine running across these kind of points that we talked about when it comes to our marketing kinds of content: ads, presentations, content, front end, back end. So now you've seen everything that this does. So you might still be thinking, okay, great, I'll go hire someone to help me do this. I'll hire someone to help me do this stuff. But before you do that, I'm going to let Dave save you some money.
Yeah. So there are 3 types of specialists that you guys might look at. And for the most part, there's something to be aware about for each of them. So first you get the brand people. Okay. So these are the branding agencies, the messaging agencies, story brand folks, that sort of crowd. Oftentimes they take 12 weeks, 15 grand, maybe a bit more on both accounts, and they hand you a beautiful mood board, a brand essence, well-designed website for a business that still basically that still can't say in one sentence why they're the only logical choice. Second are the direct response people. Now these are your copywriters, ad agencies, funnel builders, etc. Okay, And these are the sharpest operators in the industry. Okay, they optimize the message, but the problem is they often optimize the messaging on positioning that's, hey, here's why I'm better than everyone else, rather than I'm the only logical choice. Does that make sense? So for the most part, this is where they still tend to fall short. And then third, we have the strategists and the consultants. They will hand you a framework, what works in general, and they may even build out like an actual strategy that works, as well as, let's say, a set of offers that work for the kind of clients you're looking for. But at the end of the day, that's still it still doesn't work if you're, at the end of the day, nothing's going to work if you're not attracting the right types of clients in the first place. And then when things inevitably fall apart, and I'm sure lots of you have worked with consultants and business coaches before, they'll often say, well, it's your mindset. Funny how it actually always comes back to a mindset when your marketing is not working the way they promised you it would, you know? And so for the most part, even if you hired all three of these types of strategists, even if they delivered on something across the board, the one problem is everything in sync? Does it all work towards the same end result? And so for the most part, is everything interconnected? That's where you run into a specific problem, okay? So for the most part, everything we've shown you today, like how to actually position yourself as the only logical choice, it should come down to one core source of genuine differentiation, and everything should be built on top of that, okay? And we have a name for our own specific source of differentiation, right?
Yes, we call it the messaging Bible. Okay, now this isn't just some kind of brand guide. It's not some kind of swipe file. This is your strategic core that makes you the market messiah. It's your messaging Bible. So we have it all, written down, put together in one place. This is getting your category of one positioning. So it's this root cause that you get, that you own, that no one else talks about. Your big idea, your mechanism, your buyer angles, and the exact language that you need to use for every channel of your marketing. So what it does is four things for you. So one, it becomes your single source of truth. So your messaging Bible, I have ours right here, and all of our clients have these. And a lot of them print them out too. It's something that I'm referencing every day because it's your single source of truth when it comes to your marketing. So every, the ads, the emails that you write, every conversation that you have, it all needs to pull from that same place so that everything's consistent. So it's, you don't want to be like reinventing your message every Monday morning after you have your weekend revelations. I'm sure a lot of us do this. It's like new inspiration, new message, maybe this works, maybe that, and it's just changing a lot. So we don't want that anymore. So what happens when you have this is you stop chasing. So the right clients start actually recognizing you because you're finally saying the thing that they've been waiting for someone to say. You have that message. And then third, with your messaging Bible, you're able to acquire clients cheaper. So the positioning, like we talked about, positioning does all the heavy lifting on the front end that maybe your ad budget used to do on its own. Rather than spending all that money on ads, your positioning does that on the front. And then four, and this is the thing where most people don't do this very well, is you can finally actually build marketing assets with AI. So I'm sure you've tried this, but what most people don't say about AI is that, yeah, it's so great, but it's only as good as what you give it. So if you have garbage positioning in, generic information in, you're going to get generic copy out. But once you hand it your messaging Bible, then all of everything, your real diagnosis, the angles, your unique language, it can produce copy better than most copywriters that you would hire because you have that source. So yeah, Dave is actually going to prove that to you now. But yeah, I don't want to, we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
I won't prove it now. I'll make it There's another invitation I'll make to you guys. Notice how I use the word invitation. But yeah, there's an invitation for something that's happening next week. And if you guys want to see what that's about, I'll get to that in a bit. But yeah. So for the most part, the question is, if you're interested and you want to know more about this, how do you get yours built? Okay. So we do this with the Market Messiah Intensive. This is not a group program or a course. This is something where we're actually going to build your messaging Bible with you, and not just your messaging Bible, a whole bunch of other things that are going to actually help you build your business, set up the right foundation, and actually start speaking the right way to the right types of clients. Okay. And so one thing that is worth noting is that most messaging agencies that I know, because I worked with a number of them, They take weeks, often months, to send you something on par with a messaging Bible. Like, I don't think Ryan actually showed you guys, but like, show them how thick it is, Ryan, just for context. And it's not filled with fluff.
Thick.
It's like,
Yeah, it's about 100 pages. Ours is like 87, I
yeah,
think. But it's not the length too. That's the
yeah,
most important thing. It's the
yeah,
quality.
yeah, exactly. But it is quality, and that's kind of the whole point. Like, we're on the other hand, we can deliver ours in less than 7 days. Okay, and again, that's just where everything starts, because there's a whole bunch of other things we send and do for you guys in 21 days. Okay, so this usually comes down to 4 calls and 3 sets of deliverables. So the first call is the revelations session. This Ryan likes to call. So there are 2 hours where it's just going to be you and us. We're going deep into your business and into your positioning. And this is where we find the real diagnosis and the root cause, like for your specific market. And there we go. And once we've had that session, we go away and we build and we send you your messaging Bible before 7 days is up. Okay. And this is essentially where you get something like this. This is, again, everything you need for your category of 1 positioning. And yeah, after that, within 7 days, we will review that, sit down and review that together, because I always make the assumption I'm going to be 90 to potentially 99% there. I never expect it to be perfect the first time around. Sometimes it is, but that's a rare case. So that second session is about ironing out the kinks, seeing where it doesn't feel like you, and just making sure it's consistent across the board. Okay. After that, the next set of deliverables we send over will be a full website rewrite. And this isn't just an actual rewrite, this is an actual redesign. So something on the level of what you'd get from a professional branding agency. But with the added benefit that this has got your messaging actually dialed in, and it's designed based on websites that I've written over the years that tend to convert out, that tend to outperform even like qualified sales funnels, just to give you an idea. And on top of that, we give you, like I mentioned, your customer journey experience. Now, this is a lot more than just a marketing plan. This is an end-to-end marketing game plan, essentially. It's basically a bespoke marketing funnel mapped out for you. And regardless of whether you're starting out from scratch with a funnel that you need to work, or you've got a funnel that works, that brings you clients, you just need more of the right people in it, I give you what you need in both instances. And when I say it's end-to-end, I mean it's literally all the way from right at the top of the funnel, whether it's content or ads, all the way down to what are the offers, and even past that, what is the content. Okay. Then by day 14, this is where we walk through all of that together, and any extra time usually goes down to, let's say, a bit of coaching. But for the most part, this is just where we're going through it, answering your questions, etc. You get the idea. And then by day 21, we'll send you 2 more sets of things. Okay. The first is your Market Messiah game. Okay. This is not just going to be a more in-depth breakdown of what's in the customer journey experience, so like the actual funnel broken down, the actual strategy broken down, but it's going to actually have custom ads, custom emails, your actual sales presentation outline done for you, written in good copy, just for context. Literally something written on the level of a copyright. Okay. And then the last thing that we've got to send is 2 offers that we will design for you as well. The first is your front-end offer, something similar in your own variation of our 21-day Market Messiah Intensive. And then after that is your whale offer, the thing that's currently 2 to 3, potentially even 4 or even 5 times what you're currently charging. And it's going to be in-depth in both of those options. Okay. And so for the most part, this is something that, for context, that's what I designed for Michaela, the one where she sold the 15K offer. For context, she normally has a 5K offer. So you guys get the idea. So these are all the things that we're going to be sending over to you. Now, it's important to note, and I think this is also one thing that I don't want to miss, is that a lot of what we'll be doing over these 21 days, some of the benefits is going to come in having direct access to us. Because as Ryan will tell you, we will start a WhatsApp group and we will basically be like your CMOs, you know? So it's more than just this. Like, you actually get a little bit of an experience of working with us. And more specifically, if you've got any questions around content, ads, or whatever it is, things right now, send us a message. We'll answer it for you, you know? And so for the most part, you leave with all of this built towards the end, okay? Now, for the most part, when you look at everything, here's how you can see it. Um, the 5 core deliverables, or 5 core sets of deliverables, I should say. So the messaging Bible, this replaces most of what you get at a messaging agency. The full website rewrite, this replaces most of what you get at a decent branding agency. Customer journey experience, typically speaking, you'd have to hire a marketing strategist for this. The game plan with the ads, the emails, the presentation, this typically replaces a good copywriter. And then the last thing is the 2 offers. This replaces a typical business coach or consultant. Okay. So I'm sure you guys are kind of sick and tired of us teasing at this point. Do you want to know what is the offer? How much is it? Okay. It's literally just $1,000. That's it. Okay. And not even just that, because we like to take it a step further. Okay. You only have to pay 500 down up front, and you only have to send us the extra 500 after you're absolutely in love with your messaging Bible. And it's worth noting, and again, I think we've said this before, a lot of messaging agencies, Ryan, what's that story of the messaging agency that did the playbook that they had to fill in? How much was that again?
$6K for a brand playbook.
6K. And what did they have to do? They had to fill the whole thing in with no support, basically.
Yeah, here's a worksheet. Fill out this worksheet and you'll get your 6K branding Bible. They called it a branding Bible too. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I guess we're not very creative with it, but I think you guys get the idea. The typical prices for something like this, I mean, that's 6K, and that's like if it's done with you. But I've seen agencies sell something like 15K for something on this level, just so you guys get an idea. Okay. And so for the most part, you get the idea. We want to make sure you're absolutely in love with this. And if you're not, then we don't actually get paid that second. So you can bet your ass that I'm going to be motivated to make sure it's as close to perfect as possible. Okay. And before even that, because we're not going to send you guys straight to a Stripe link if you're interested, we want to make sure that this makes sense for everyone here who is somewhat interested. Okay. So we don't start with here's the purchase link. We start with a book call. Okay. Because we want to make sure that it's worth 1,000 times what you'll pay. This is kind of just our general rule of thumb. We want to make sure we work with the right people. Likewise, for the most part, we only have a select number of clients we actually can work with. With how things are looking in Q3, we've only got about 5 spots left as it currently stands. So we've only got about 5 of these that we can give out today. So for the most part, if you guys are interested, if you even just want to have a conversation with us about it, because it's worth having that conversation one way or another, just type ready in the chat and we'll reach out to you to make sure we get the call booked and to see if this makes sense. So for those of you who are interested, type ready in the chat and we can go from there.
Yeah, guys, this stuff, this has been, landing, what we've been saying here today. Again, if it's like not wanting to be competing against everyone else anymore, being the only logical choice, want these kinds of things. If you think you're a good fit for the Market Messiah Intensive here, just, type ready in the chat and then we'll message you later and we can be setting up a call for that to talk about it more.
I'm getting a few people who are direct messaging me. Okay, that's fine. You guys don't want to do it publicly, that's fine. But yeah. Okay, cool. So for the most part, yeah. And then lastly, Ryan.
Yeah. Okay. So if for anyone who's still sitting on the fence here, that's of course totally fine. Just don't take our word for it. I'm just going to show a few things from other clients, like past people that have gone through this intensive with us. So we just have 3 of them here, and just kind of some of our favorite ones. And so first here we have Lisa. So, Lisa, she kind of, says everything here, so I won't read through everything. But what we really love about Lisa is she's a real action taker kind of person. She didn't even wait until the end of the intensive. But while she was still in it, she can kind of see towards the bottom, like she built a quiz, built an email plan, worked it into the signature speech that she's had. And now she's even writing a book with elements of the messaging Bible in it. So she really just got it. She ran with it. That's definitely a dream client right there. And then next we have Drew. And so what we love about Drew, he comes from really a niche that no one would tell you could sell high ticket for, and that's in golf, like in golf coaching, but made it work anyway. And he'll tell you himself that, yeah, he's never saw anything like having the messaging Bible in the intensive. So yeah, if it works there, you can definitely imagine that it could work easily in something like in a niche that you're in. And then we have Kelly. So Kelly is next. And yeah, so she actually comes from a marketing background and she's a writer herself, kind of like you, Dave. But she was one of those cases where she charged her whole approach, or she changed up basically her whole approach halfway through, which is fine. It happens a lot of times. We're working with people and then they get that kind of clarity and then they want to change it up. But yeah, we rolled with it, and in the end, she again, obviously, couldn't be happier. Even when we took a turn, still real happy about it. So yeah, so those are three, of just dozens of these kinds of testimonials we have, but I think they just give you a good idea of how thrilled, and excited you can be about, having your messaging Bible too. And that like, we're really going to go, really go the extra mile, when working with you.
Cool. So I promised something at the very beginning, which is ultimately we want to show you guys, like, for each of those of you that put down one of the answers of like, I want to stay stream of clients without having to rely on agencies or whatever it is. I'll give you guys quickly what I think what you guys should do specifically. And yeah, I'll just keep it quick and simple. So if you want to stay stream of clients without having to hire an agency, the simple thing is you have to just not change your channel. Most agencies take you off the channel you're already used to. And for the most part, you have no familiarity with, so you have no idea how to know if something is working or not. If you're on LinkedIn, scale with LinkedIn ads or viral content if you can hack that. I don't know how people can, but some people like LinkedIn apparently. But for the most part, keep it down to one channel, find what's already working, and learn to scale that. Okay? It's just, for the most part, you don't have to change much, and you just have to have the right positioning, speak to the right people in the right way, which again, we get to a certain point, and you never have to work with an agency. After that, you want to lead with the symptoms of bias. Okay? So I mentioned this earlier, but if you want to avoid tire kickers, you have to speak to the right people. So you lead with the symptoms of the bias. By doing this, it completely goes over the heads of most tire kickers, because why we're speaking to people who are either solution aware or high pain aware to the point where it doesn't lead with the claim, something like that typically brings in a tire kicker. It's something that speaks specifically to someone who's right at the buying point now. Okay. After that, why nothing's worked? The simple version of this is that you guys just need to have your own version of a report, category of one sales on. Okay. Once you've got that, once someone fully understands that, they buy in and they realize, okay, I have to work with you. Okay. So once you have that, it's quite simple. By having this, things work. After that, if you want to get a steady stream of the right clients without having to offer insane guarantees or do something weird with your offer, just have the right front-end offer to go right out of the gate. So we mentioned earlier, Michaela's webinar, she converted about 20% of live attendees. And again, that came down to having the right messaging, having the right offer. And for the most part, it's something similar to what we've done here, but more specific and bespoke to what you guys do. And then lastly, we have, how do you get a low cost per lead? Well, for those of you that are stuck around, you want to run through the 3-phase testing strategy that I've got here. And I'll give you guys the link to this right now. Just put this in the chat. Okay, follow this approach. And this will bring your cost per lead down as much as humanly possible for your VSLs, webinars, challenges, whatever it is that you guys use. Okay, so if you're interested, type ready, and yeah, we can definitely get going. Well, last week, excited. Yeah, we're definitely excited to have you there, Steph. Yeah. And so last thing, for those of you guys who are still on the fence and just want to know whether you're watching this here or you're watching this on replay, well, you're probably thinking, well, how applicable is this going to be? Like, how useful is this messaging Bible going to be for my marketing? Well, let me ask you a question. How would you like to watch an 8-figure copywriter write 25 breakthrough ads in 25 minutes? So same time as this workshop started today, next Thursday, So 5 p.m. UK Central Time. I think it's 12 Eastern, right, Ryan?
Yep. 12 Eastern.
Yeah. I'll be sitting down for 25 minutes and I will take my messaging Bible and I'll write 25 ads. I'm just going to use the messaging Bible, Claude, and a few simple prompts. I'm not going to write any of these, and you'll see kind of how I do it. So if that's interesting to you and you want to see kind of like the quality of the output that can come from this messaging Bible, let me put this in the chat. You guys can sign up for this here. All right. So that's everything. And we've given out both the link to that live demo, and we've given out the live attendee bonus. So is there anything else we can do for you guys?